Hello, and welcome to All Ages Storytime. We're doing stories from the Brothers Grimm, and today our story is called Snow White and Rose Red. Now, if you're thinking of the Snow White with the 7 little dwarfs, different Snow White, you're going to hear a different story today. But let's start with our song. Hello, friends, hello, friends, hello, friends, I'm glad to see you here. Once upon a time, a woman lived in a little cottage, and in front of the cottage was a garden in which grew 2 rose trees. One of those rose trees was white roses, and the other rose tree was red roses. The woman also had 2 daughters, and they looked remarkably like those rose trees. One was very pale-skinned, and she was called Snow White, and the other had red rosy cheeks, and she was called Rose Red. And they were loving, busy, and untiring children. Snow White was gentle and quieter than her sister. Rose Red was busy, and she loved to be running around and looking for flowers and trying to catch summer birds. Snow White was more likely to stay home with her mom, help out with some housework, or do some reading when everything else was done for the day. The 2 sisters loved each other a lot. They were always seen together, and they agreed, what one of us has, the other one will have, for we will always share with the other. One thing the 2 sisters really loved to do in the warm weather was go outside and pick ripe berries and see what animals they can find. The animals came to eat parsley or dandelion leaves or other yummy things, right from the sisters' hands. The deer would come right up and stand next to them and eat grass. The birds would sing in branches over their heads, and sometimes the sisters just liked to camp out in the woods overnight, and their mother trusted that the animals would look after her daughters. Snow White and Rose Red kept their mother's cottage so clean it shined. In summer, Rose Red would pick a bouquet, and every time it had 1 rose from the white tree and 1 rose from the red tree. In the winter, Snow White would put tea in the tea kettle, but first she would polish it so it was very shiny. And in the evening, when snow was falling, their mother would sit by the fireplace and read aloud to the sisters from a big book, while the girls did things like spin wool, which in their day was something important to do if you wanted warm clothes. And every evening, they would bring in their small lamb and a pet white pigeon. And the bird would sit on a perch near the fireplace, and the lamb would curl up right in front of the fireplace, kind of like you would think your dog might do. One evening, as they were all sitting cozily together like this, there was a knock on the door. "Hurry, Rose Red," said her mother. "Open the door. It is surely some traveler seeking shelter. Because in those days, you didn't have a hotel to go to. You would stop at whoever's house was near where you were. And it was cold, and it was snowy, just like we had a week or so back." So Rose Red went to the door, opened it to see who was there, expecting to see some cold, shivering traveler. But it was nothing of the kind. Do you know what she saw when she opened the door? It was a bear! A big, hairy bear that stuck his big black head through the open door. Rose Red went, "Ah!" and she jumped back. The lamb went, "Bah, bah, bah." The dove fluttered her wings, and Snow White hid behind her mother. But then the bear began to talk, and it said, "Don't be afraid. I won't harm you. I'm half frozen, and I just want to warm myself by your fire." "Oh, poor bear," said the mother. "Come on in and lie by the fire. Just be careful not to burn your fur." Then she called her daughters and told them the bear was very kind and would not hurt them. And eventually, even the lamb and the dove relaxed. "Children," begged the bear, "please knock all this caked up crunchy snow off my coat." And so they got the broom and they started sweeping the bear's fur until all the snow was off of it. After that, the bear stretched himself out in front of the fire, growled little as he settled in to a nice, comfortable sleep. And as he slept, the children played with his fur. They ran their hands through it. They were patting him kind of like a great big oversized dog. And when it was night and all were ready for bed, the mom said to the bear, "You can stay here and lie by the fireplace if you like, so that you are sheltered from the cold and the bad weather." And the bear agreed. But in the morning, when everybody got up, the bear said, "I need to go." And they opened the door, and off he went back out into the woods. After that night, every evening at the exact same time, the bear would come. He would stretch out. He would ask the girls to take all the snow and crushed up ice off of his fur. And he usually let them play gently with him. And then he would fall asleep in front of the fireplace. When springtime finally came and everything began to green up, one day the bear said to Snow White, "Now I must leave you, and all summer I will not come back." "Where are you going, Bear?" asked Snow White. "I have to go to the woods to protect my treasure from the evil gnomes. In wintertime, when the earth is frozen hard, they must remain underground and cannot make their way through. But now that the sunshine has thawed the earth, the gnomes will be back to the surface, and whatever gets in their hands or is brought into their caves will never see daylight again." Snow White was very sad when she said goodbye to the good-natured beast. She unlocked the door, and out he went into the woods. On his way out, he caught part of his fur on a little nail that was sticking out from the door frame. Snow White thought that she didn't see him bleed on that little sore, but that maybe there was gold shining through. But on a bear, who would expect that? And off he went, hidden into the trees. Well, it was summer and spring, and it was warm, and one day the mother sent her children into the woods to pick up sticks for their wood stove. And they found a big tree lying on the ground that had fallen over in a big storm. And near the roots, they noticed something skipping and jumping, but sometimes it was hidden in the grass. So they got closer, and they looked, and they looked. It was a gnome with a shriveled up face and a long white beard. And his beard was stuck in the tree trunk. And the tiny little fellow was jumping back and forth like a dog on the end of a leash because he could not get himself free. And he stared at the children with his red, fiery eyes, and he said, "Why are you standing there? Help me!" "Well, what were you doing?" asked Rose Red. "Stupid, inquisitive goose," replied the gnome. "I meant to split the trunk so that I could chop it up for our wood stove. Big logs are too big for the small stove people like us have, and we do not eat great heaps of food as you greedy humans do. And my axe got stuck. Now my beard is stuck. You stupid pale-faced creatures, laugh, will you?" And in spite of the dwarf's bad temper, the girls tried everything they could think of to release the little man, but the beard would not be moved. It was stuck right there in the tree trunk. "I will run and get some help," said Rose Red. "Idiot!" cried the dwarf, who was very rude. "Why would you get more people? There's already too many people. Can't you think of something better?" "Let's not be so impatient," said Snow White. "I'll try and think of something." And then she got an idea. She was carrying scissors in her pocket. Who knows why? But she was, and it was good because she clipped the end of the gnome's beard and set him free. A little bit of the beard stayed stuck in the tree. And as soon as he realized he was free, the gnome grabbed a sack full of gold that was hidden in the tree roots, lifting it up, grumbled, "Clumsy creatures, cut off my beautiful beard. Huh." Well, and off he went, disappearing without so much as a thank you. Not long afterwards, the two sisters went fishing in the brook. And as they came near the water, they saw something that looked like a giant grasshopper jumping back and forth along the stream, as if it might get pulled in. They ran up to see what was going on, and, don't you know, it was the gnome. "Where are you going?" Rose Red said. "Surely you're not going to jump into the brook." "I'm not such a fool as that," said the little man. don't you see that giant fish is trying to pull me in? Well, the dwarf had been sitting on the side of the stream by the brook trying to fish. And for him, it was bad luck. He caught a giant fish. Well, the fish had gotten on his hook and was trying to pull, and the little gnome was not strong enough to pull in that giant fish. And so they were having a tug of war. And the gnome was almost getting pulled into the stream. The girls had arrived just in time. They grabbed a hold of the little gnome firmly and tried to untwist his beard that had gotten stuck in the fishing line. But it was all in vain. There was nothing to do but take out the scissors and trim off some more beard so he wasn't stuck on his fishing line anymore. When the gnome realized what they had done, he screamed in rage. Is this how you damage my beard, my beautiful beard? You've cut it again. You're spoiling it. I shall never dare show my face among my friends. They will call me ugly, all because of what you've done. Oh. Then he fetched a sack of pearls that lay in the rushes, and not saying another word, boop, off he went and disappeared behind a huge stone. Well, one day not long after that, the mother sent her daughters to the store to buy some cotton, some needles, some ribbon, and some thread. The path through the town went through a field of giant boulders that were scattered all around. And the children's attention was soon attracted to a big bird that just kept circling over one of the boulders in the air. And they watched him. And after circling and circling, the bird kept getting lower and lower towards the boulder, and all of a sudden, boop, the bird grabbed something and started to try and fly away. And they realized, oh, the bird had that gnome in his talons. And the little gnome was screaming, help, help, help. And so, of course, the two sisters ran over to try and help, and they grabbed the little gnome by his feet and pulled him down. And the big bird was flapping its wings, trying to pull him up. And it was like a tug of war with the gnome in the middle. And finally, the two sisters yanked very hard and pulled, and the bird flew off. And the gnome fell on the ground. Well, of course he was angry. He always was angry. Couldn't you have held me more gently, he said. Look, you've torn my coat. You clumsy, awful things. Then he picked up a sack of jewels and disappeared behind the rock. By this time, the girls were very used to his ungrateful, nasty ways, so they honestly didn't think much about it, but went to the town, made their purchases, and were headed home. On the way home, who do you think they saw one more time? But the gnome. In a clear space, he had poured out his sack of jewels so he could count them and admire them. And the sun was just getting low in the sky, so all the light was playing off all those bright jewels. It made the girls stop and take a look, too. When he saw they were there, of course he yelled, "What are you looking at?" And at the same time, his face turned red with rage. "Are you trying to steal my jewels?" And suddenly, there was a growl behind them. And a big black bear walked up. The gnome had a terror look on his face. And he could not run to his hiding place fast enough, and he couldn't gather up all the jewels fast enough. The bear was too close. So he cried out, "Mr. Bear, Mr. Bear, I'll give you all my treasure. Look at all those beautiful jewels laying there. Don't hurt me. What would you do with me? I'm too little to be a meal for you. Look at those two big humans. They would taste much better than I do. Oh, please, Mr. Bear, don't hurt me." But the bear paid no attention to the bullying dwarf. He raised his paw as if he meant to slap down the little gnome. And the gnome, seeing that bear paw up in the air, it scared him literally to death. And he dropped dead. Meanwhile, the girls were running away, going for home as fast as they could. But all of a sudden, they were stopped by a very familiar voice. Snow White, Rose Red, don't be afraid of me, stay. I'll go with you and go home and make sure you get there safe. And the bear came towards them. And they recognized that it was their friend. But as soon as he got next to them, the bear skin fell off of him. And there, dressed completely in gold, was a very handsome young man. I am a king's son, he said, and I was enchanted by that wicked gnome lying over there. He stole my treasure, and he forced me to live in the woods as a big bear until he should die, and then I could be free. So, sometime after she rescued the prince, he and Snow White were married. The prince conveniently had a brother, and Rose Red conveniently fell in love with a brother. They were married too. And so they shared the enormous treasure which the gnome had collected in his cave. And their mother? She spent many happy years with both her children. And that is the story of Rose Red and Snow White. Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. It's time to say goodbye. See you next week for Storytime.